He's all miserable this morning eating his muesli.
Well, why doesn't he do a puzzle or something?
I've tried that. He says on no uncertain terms this is to be any more crossword, Sudoku or jigsaws. No, I think maybe we should get somebody else in, to stimulate him intellectually.
No, Steve, he doesn't need stimulating. And I'm his carer.
You don't live there. You're shacked up with bargain basement Beckham. No, he's a lot happier when someone was there all the time.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 349 of the Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast at 3.14159265389732338462643CA3279 and so on. I'm Gavin.
And I have a shiny, clean colon and no place to go.
Now here's our dilemma. Do we talk about Pie Day or do we talk about your colon?
Why not both? I was thinking,
neither?
I was thinking, I believe we have 2 pies in the freezer outside in the garage. That's right, people. We're so wealthy. We have a garage refrigerator with freezer. That's the kind of money we're in.
That's what you're funding, folks. Appliances outdoors.
Yes. And I keep thinking that I'm going to go out and get one and throw one in the oven, and I just haven't done it. I haven't had an awful lot of energy today.
What flavoured pies are they?
I believe one is apple and one is blueberry.
Apple, please. Do we have squishy cream?
I don't know. I'm not a huge squishy cream person. I know that's unusual in this house, but I like the flavour of the pie itself.
I think the flavour of the pie is enhanced by the cream. Okay, let's talk
about fruit here.
I'm not sure what we're talking about anymore. I'm not sure that I ever did. How are you?
I'm tired and I'm frustrated and I'm mad that I have to go through prep again on Sunday.
You did not succeed in getting a camera put up your bottom today.
That's correct.
I did. But
that's a different story.
That's a different story for a different podcast.
Yeah. Apparently I was told wrong information about when to stop one of my medications. It's funny. I'm on a medication that slows down digestion, but I'm also on a medication that speeds up digestion. So you'd think they'd cancel each other out.
You would think exactly that.
But not enough for the anesthesiologist to not be afraid of libel if I died on the table by aspirating on a loose piece of egg.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with those eggs.
Seriously. So we've had to reschedule for Monday.
Hooray.
Well, you can say hooray.
2 days off work for this.
Yes.
This procedure requires 2 days off work.
Right. And purchasing prep twice, which is $60 a pop. But I did come home and do like some marketing work for work, so it wasn't a total loss.
I just worked a slightly shorter day.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's that. So, if you were hoping for a report on how my colon is doing, and
I know most people listening to this are,
and if there were polyps and if they were removed, and how many of them were phallic in shape, last time.
You'll have to wait till next week.
You'll have to wait till next week. Yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that phallic corrie news. Talking of which, I posted a clip on the Twitter of a scene from 2007, a famous scene of Deirdre and Blanche and Rita and some others out for dinner in an Italian restaurant, and Deirdre's looking at the ass of the waiter and she says, if I was 10 years younger, and her mum says, you'd still be old enough to be his mother. But there's a Eileen's there as well, and there's a statue behind her, a kind of
David?
a sculpted statue, a
Yes.
marble sort of thing. So she's got a cock and balls over her shoulder.
Uh-huh.
So I've already had a little bit of phallic classic Corrie news today.
Oh,
I don't know if that was worth saying or not. I doubt
probably
it.
not.
Probably not.
It's all right. Believe it or not, Max has had his last scene on the show as Patty Bever says so long to the Cobbles on Insta, saying thank you to both the lovers and the haters of Max. Well done, Patty.
I think that showed a little bit of maturity and awareness that his character was somewhat divisive.
Yes,
Probably, what with him being
divisive.
all the racisms.
All the racisms and the burning down the house and being creepy around someone else's baby, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about
Yeah.
that. Fare thee well, Paddy, and
Yes.
good luck to you.
Remember when he won an award, and Kelly the Chin said like a swear word that you can't hear, but you can see her mouth make behind him because she's so happy for him. I believe it was like "shut the fuck up" or something. Like she
No.
was so ecstatic that he's won this award. It's very cute.
I'll need to look that up later.
Yes, or not. Sharpen those pitchforks, folks. Corrie will be pulled on March 24th for more of the sport ball as England play Latvia, the home of Best Animated Picture winner, Flo. Balls in your court, Estonia. Or England.
Somebody.
Somebody. And finally, Shelley King has also said her goodbyes, citing a desire to go back to the theatre, but has left the door open to a possible return in the future. So we may not have seen the last of Yasmeen, but here's hoping that Shelley snags some theatrical performances for us all to enjoy in the meantime.
Yeah.
We went to the theater this week.
We did. We saw Life of Pi.
Yes, we did.
It was very good. It comes back to Pi again
Yes.
on Pi Day.
On Pi Day, we talk about the life of Pi.
I used to know of Pi and was able to recite it to 324 decimal places.
Right. And you got 3-year-old Estella to do so as well on an app on your phone.
She got up to about 30, which I still think is quite impressive.
For a 3-year-old, yes. And that's Corrie News.
And while we're in the midst of Corrie News, congratulations to Sam Aston for winning Dancing on Ice
Sure.
last weekend.
I feel like I'm still traumatized by that whole salt and pepper thing he did with the big massive boombox and Kirk on top as DJ.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that. And what was the other thing? There was another thing that was... Oh, it was Sally Devner's daughter. She's in the new M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Right.
Which
yes.
is quite exciting.
Yes, it is exciting. You seem to frown upon me putting other people who aren't on the show in Corrie News, though.
Doesn't stop you.
No. But I
And-
was able to put people who are actually on the show in this week. So,
Good for you.
yes. Good for me indeed.
And I noticed.
Yeah. I was going to talk about Helen Flanagan's new relationship and decided not to.
I feel like we're growing. We're growing together as people and as a unit
Yes.
on this podcast.
Yes. And as owners of colons.
Talking of which, not the colons, talking of the podcast, let's move on now to the smooth sailing that I like to call our feedback section, which I also like to call
Everyone's a critic.
Everyone's a Critic.
And I call Christmas on Mars.
Oh, you've remembered that, have you?
It's never far from my mind.
Daisy writes in, hi Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Can
I'm
I
Tweedledee.
Oh, damn it. Haven't written in a while because, quite frankly, we all know it's been a dumpster fire of a few weeks. Good writing, where are you? However, I just wanted to commend fellow Daisy on her acting skills during her baby loss. Outstanding. And I hope she gets a big badass role out of those scenes. I've got a package full of stuff waiting in my flat to send to you. And I promise one day it'll get sent. Love as always to Shrill and Gruff.
I'm shrill.
I'll be gruff. Thank you very much, Daisy. We look forward to it.
You can even be Mick Gruff, the crime dog.
No,
I'm sure we've got it.
I feel that's offensive to my Scottish heritage.
I'm sure we've got a trench coat around here somewhere so you could take a bite out of crime.
We still talking about creamy pies? No. Then Stephen writes, do you think they may have pulled back on killing off David since EastEnders just killed off Martin Fowler for their 40th anniversary? Stephen, I have no idea. What is this thing you speak of, the EastEnders? I haven't watched it in...
Ages.
I've watched it a couple of times since I moved over here, but
Yeah.
I think maybe the last time I watched it properly, Dirty Den was in it.
Woo.
He was so dirty.
I imagine.
Martin Fowler was the first baby born on the show and had been telegraphing his death for a year. And speaking of Sally and dinner parties, were we?
Were we?
I've always wondered, is she self-aware enough to dress as Hyacinth Bouquet for Halloween, or would it be funnier if she dressed as someone else and everyone just thought she was Hyacinth? I think the latter would be funnier.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Rob writes, with the way Ryan Mulvey is playing Brody, that's Chief Brody from the movie Jaws, I think the Dylan storyline could be leading up to a sexual assault, and I really hope it doesn't go there.
Yeah, that's how we were feeling.
But writers, I can see what you're doing. Yeah, I think previous weeks and this week as well
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
suggest that something of that nature's afoot.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see any
No.
STC scenes.
No. And especially not, one of this nature with the son of a gay man, because I can just see them totally messing that up and making it 100 times worse.
I also think with the David rape story, which is still not that long ago,
No.
when you do this more often, it kind of reduces the impact of it, I think.
Yeah.
And plus, Dylan's so young, it makes it worse.
Yes.
Ugh. So yes, we're all on the same page, Rob. Then Gary writes, I don't know either. Which I think is in response to the I don't know that we got from Aria last week. At least I hope so.
Thanks, Gary.
Appreciate your input.
You're the best man.
Dead Deer on Blue Sky writes, very much enjoyed this week, thanks. I think you are harsh on Daisy. She didn't tell the truth because nobody, especially Bloody Daniel, ever lets her finish a sentence.
That's true.
Also, I like the effects in David's inner monologue. Especially when he was being profound about life and death and got muddled up about the number of hours he had left. I wasn't all that keen on the inner monologue, but like I said last week, I think in the context of the show, it was maybe would have been a little better if we weren't watching Coronation Street. If it was something else, then it would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I liked the writing all the way through. The special effects, not quite so much, but I enjoyed the inner monologue, the writing of the inner monologue. I thought it was well done and profound while also still maintaining David's voice.
There we go. Noel writes, I think to you, your voice is cheery, perky, and very much happy making.
Aw,
I fell in love with you both from the beginning.
aw.
Look to your P.O. box. There's a storm coming. Oof.
Wait, has he stuffed Coulson Smith in a box and shipped him to us?
Is that what you take from that?
Because remember, it was Coulson who said on Instagram last week that a storm is coming for his end scenes.
Oh, no, I don't remember.
We talked about this last week.
And I don't remember.
Okay.
And finally, Cheeky writes, I love that David got beat up by Kit. He was told enough home truths about his behaviour that he finally decided to make changes for the better, and I think that's amazing. We'll see how long it lasts. On Wednesday, I loved the idea that Daisy was so desperate to be cared about that even a stranger would do, but she turned to the worst person to talk to in the form of Mick. Jenny came to Daisy's defence against Mick on Friday, and it was a bit too quick of a reconciliation for me considering all the damage she caused in such a short span of time.
Yes.
It was nice to see Ed back sporting a new Santa beard, but it's Dee Dee's baby, and she can decide what she wants to do with it.
Right.
And I'm really glad that Leanne is on good terms with Sam finally, but don't like the fact that she was trying to control what Speed Daal could become.
Racism? I mean, we'll talk about this later, but
Leanne's not racist, is she?
I don't think so, but I think her trying to...
Yeah, we'll get
there.
We'll get
there. Yeah.
Thank you very much to Cheeky, to Noel, to Dead Deer, to Gary, to Rob, to Stephen, and to Daisy for writing in this week. We very much appreciate it. Feedback's always welcome. Send us your thoughts. and I'll probably read them out. Get us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com, or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. Or we love it when people write actual letters to us.
We do.
Send us your proper mail to the Talk of the Street, P.O.
And
Box.
send us chocolates.
In the middle of reading out the address, Helen. Send us your proper mail to the Talk of the Street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan. Do you want to interrupt the zip code?
No.
48827. Please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interests
Of brevity.
Of brevity.
Woo. That's how seriously I take chocolate. Your awkward pause, I was putting toxic in. Like you did with Daniel and Daisy's awkward
did.
silence
It
on.
fitted perfectly.
It did.
I didn't have to
Edit really much.
change the speed of anything.
Nope.
It fits exactly between that gap.
Perfect.
And now, let's podcast for coffee. Thank you to Ian Les Paul for our coffees this week.
Thank you.
Ian
and
writes-
his wife.
Ian writes, enjoying the book, Gav, says Ian. Write us another.
Yes, please.
Do you know, I've been mulling about with an idea for years of another storyline, and I haven't written it because I don't know enough about bank heists, which forms a very small part of the plot that I have in mind. And that's putting me off writing anything.
Meanwhile, I have a complete novel written, and I'm just too lazy to find a publisher or an agent to get it published.
And thank you also to Stephen for our coffees this week.
Yes.
Stephen, who I've already mentioned. But
My
Stephen,
best friend. Best blue sky friend, at least.
Stephen writes, Helen's choice of coffee specifically
Aw.
because I finished reading Melons in Memory this morning.
Yeah.
That's your poetry book, which somehow Stephen
Was
managed
able
to get
to-
their hands on.
Through interlibrary loan.
Which
Could you
library
imagine?
had this?
I don't know. I don't
Because
know.
our library doesn't, does it? Does it?
It used to.
Maybe that's where it came from.
It's quite possible. I don't know if they still have a copy. Remember, because I donated it when we first moved here, and they
Mm-hmm.
were very chuffed and very lovely about it, and put it in their collection. And then your book got published, and
And
they
told me
turned
to
you
fuck
down.
off. They told me to fuck off. They wouldn't accept it without evidence of reviews of it.
Which is weird.
And it's not self-published. I
No,
didn't self-publish it.
No.
It's published by a local indie publisher.
yeah,
You'd think that would be enough. But
Yeah.
apparently people have been self-publishing just to get their stuff in the library.
yeah,
Which, admittedly, I was wanting to do. So,
right, yeah.
oh well.
Stephen also wrote on Blue Sky about my book.
Oh, here we go.
Some poems make you laugh, make you cry, make you think, make you feel things. Trademark. And then there are poems that cut out your heart, make you stare into the distance and glimpse the soul of the poet. Melons in Memory by the wonderful Helen Broom has all of these and more. Now, if you want to interlibrary loan this book, just remember, it's my alter ego, Helen Peterson, whose name is on the cover, and not Helen Broom. So if you look for Melons in Memory, Helen Broom, you're not going to find it.
So thank you to Stephen and to Ian Les Paul for our coffees this week. We have an embarrassment of riches as far as coffee choices are concerned.
Yes, although I'm drinking cranberry juice.
And I'm drinking iced tea, but we will drink coffee at some point. And this money will buy it.
I'm just happy to not be on the clear liquids for 24 hours.
The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes, but if you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/The Talk of the Street. You can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link, where for as little as $2 a month, you can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. And if Ko-Fi isn't your thing, we also have a Patreon site where you can show us some love. Sign up to be a friend of the podcast there at patreon.com/The Talk of the Street. But remember, you can always support the podcast for free. Get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating, and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
All right, now all that nasty business is out of the way.
Well, it wasn't all nasty.
Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please.
It is so hot in here.
It is. It is. I want to take off all my clothes.
It is 70 degrees outside today,
Yeah.
and it's, I think, 80 degrees in this room. We made it.
We did.
made it through the winter.
We did.
We did it again.
Although this is probably just false spring.
Yeah. Well, it'll be It's known tomorrow, probably.
Probably.
Our first storyline tonight is knocking down the house. On Monday,
Knocking down the house.
at the hospital, Shona tells David that Harvey has now been paid off.
Woot woot!
Evil dies tonight!
Do you think Harvey is Kit's dad?
I think Harvey's Kit's dad. No.
Who do you think is Kit's dad?
I don't know. I don't think it's Harvey, though. Do you?
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about it after the Kit and David scenes this week. But anyway.
So yeah, Harvey's been paid off. Presumably, Shona got a hold of his PayPal account. So that's quite handy, isn't it, Helen?
She got a hold of some sort of digits of Harvey's in order to transfer money to Harvey, who is in prison.
Yes.
Maybe she just transferred it to the canteen at the prison so that he can buy cigarettes and ramen noodles.
£40,000 worth of ramen noodles.
Yeah,
That's a lot of noodles.
they're very expensive in prison.
But then they bump into Daniel.
Boo!
Shona and David, that is, not ramen noodles. And he blabs that she lost, and he blabs that Daisy lost the baby and Shona's taking 40 grand of Betty's inheritance from her. David is shocked by this.
Shocked, I tell ya.
So Shona has to explain the backstory of the hit and run before the hit and run. The hit and run that happened a couple of months ago. Back at the hospital, David rightly blames himself for all this and wants to apologise and explain to Daisy, but Shona tells him that if he confesses, they could be totally fucked again. But David texts Daisy and asks to meet her, so she goes to the hospital. And despite Shona's warnings, David confesses all. He's the reason she lost the baby, and Daisy, understandably, does not take this well.
No.
Calling David selfish and
Yes.
also stupid for planning to do this on the very street where he lives.
Right, yes.
Why not do it in the middle of the country?
Right.
Or round the corner, or somewhere where people that you know and love aren't
Aren't
likely to
walking.
be round about.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yes.
Writers of Coronation Street.
And also, 1 million people won't run out of buildings to save your life. You could just lie there on the street and bleed out.
And slowly die.
And
yeah.
succeed in dying.
She demands that Bertie's money is paid back, and she only gets angrier when she learns that it's already been spent. David promises to get her the money back eventually, but Daisy wants to go at the cops about it and then quickly assesses the chain of events that would kick off, and she changes her tune, choosing to talk about her baby being a girl and suggesting some of the names that she had in mind. David is in pain, either from the injuries or the conversation.
It was Elsie, right, for a girl, and Benjamin for a boy.
Was it?
I think so.
Shona is
Fucking
furious with David for confessing to this and tells him that he'd better hope to fuck that Kit doesn't find out.
Right, yeah. 'Cause-
Spoiler, guess what happens?
Yes.
So Wednesday, that's David home from the hospital after he died last week for a little bit.
Right, yes. Yes. And not even a neck brace on him.
He does have his arm in a sling.
Right.
Or he did on Monday. I can't remember if he still does. I think he still does.
I think he still does. He and Daisy both have arms in slings, but our other end, a little bit of jam on their faces still. But otherwise,
A little butterfly stitch.
yeah. Otherwise, perfectly fine after, nearly dying.
Well, David did die.
Flipping over a car, yes. And they had to bring him back. And then they shoved him out, back onto the street. Ridiculous. Although even when he was in the hospital, they let him walk around. He doesn't even have like an IV that he's like dragging around with him.
No, he was just standing outside chatting to...
Right, in his robe and jammy bottoms and a grey t-shirt.
He's no sooner home, and despite Shona's protests, he heads out to check on number 8 and start making some phone calls to get things sorted. Meanwhile, at the cop shop, Swain tells Kit that Andy has been brought in and he is full of no comment. Shona comes in at the pub to thank Daisy for not reporting David, but Daisy just wants everything over with, but she isn't about to be dishing out any forgiveness. Then in comes an enormous police officer who is instantly suspicious to see the two of them chatting, and when he tells Daisy that Andy has been brought in for questioning, he spots that Daisy has the same face as Andy did, and he demands to know what happened, telling her that she deserves justice. He can give her it.
But not like that.
And moments later, he drops in to see David. They back and forth about Andy, and then Kit reveals that he knows the truth, thanks to Daisy. David apologises for killing his baby and wishes that he could undo it. Kit has driven David to the cop shop, but thanks to David's smart arse mouth, Kit decides to go
A little further afield.
And decides a bit of a tanking is the better option. So he drives David to an empty warehouse at Gunpoint Docks and kicks the fuck out of him.
Yay!
In the warehouse, Kit gives David a hard time for supposed nobility complex, killing himself to save his family. What a hero. But he never once thought about how his family would have felt. He's not a hero. He's an asshole. Dragging them through hell and then going to kill himself? What a prick. The conversation cools and Kit tells David that he's a lucky man and leaves him to it, apologising for getting his hole off of Shona that one time. So David has to walk home when he eventually gets there after being beaten up for the third time in 3 weeks, and quickly hears from Max, who has settled into life in County Durham prison pretty well. There's been no Harvey news, so that's all sorted now, and Max prepares himself for the next 6.5 years and never being mentioned on Coronation Street ever again.
And gets to hear all the hot goss from his sister.
Now, I don't think I was surprised that was Max's final scenes, but on the other hand, I was super surprised that was Max's final scenes.
Yeah, me too. I was like, really?
Over the phone?
Over the phone? That's
David
it?
couldn't go and see him?
He can drive all the way to County Durham. How far is that?
I'm going to guess 150 miles. Let me look it up.
I mean, it's a small country. You can drive from the top to the bottom of it in, less than a week, which one can't say for this particular country, which we are sitting in right now.
You could drive coast to coast in a week.
Yeah, but it would take the whole week.
Oh.
If you stopped to sleep and be careful and pee occasionally and not wear an adult diaper the whole time. Like that one crazy astronaut. Remember that?
Why are you deliberately picking out things that I don't remember? From Manchester to Newcastle upon Tyne, which is essentially County Durham. 153 miles.
All right. So that's what? 3 hours?
3 hours.
Yeah. That's easily done. I bet it'd be even faster if you took the train.
Probably would.
Yeah. Which, let's be honest, the train system in the UK is pretty decent.
Well, it's better than Scotland. I don't know about England. But
as opposed to the horrible train system here.
yeah, you're faster walking.
America.
Yeah, so doing this little conversation over the phone where I think Lily's intervention into it was meant to be kind of wholesome and and showing how that relationship is going to survive over the next 6.5 years.
Yeah.
It had the effect of just interrupting David and Max having their final conversation.
Right. He does get a chance to call David Dad, though, and that was nice.
Yeah. And David misses the opportunity to call Max son.
And Shona doesn't get to say goodbye at all.
At all.
She's sitting right there on the couch, and nobody even offers her the phone.
No.
No. What the hell?
She would just say something inappropriate.
But also nice.
Well, sometimes I think that she's got her head screwed on much better than anybody else in that family.
Yes, they should all be shot in the stomach.
One by one.
Yes.
Yeah, just a fairly low-key exit.
Yeah.
For Paddy, and maybe he deserved a little bit better than that.
Maybe.
Not a huge amount, because the character wasn't always the easiest to like, but he's still put in a few years in it.
Yeah, well, let's not pretend that the other goodbye this week was any better.
Well, which one? Because there's a couple. So, on Friday, David is testing Lily on US state capitals, and she does pretty well.
Yes, I was very pleased with Providence.
Mm-hmm.
That was really good. And Albany, because everybody thinks that the capital of New York is New York.
Yeah.
Because they're dumb. That's like people thinking that Detroit is the capital of Michigan. And it's not.
Nope.
It's Lansing. I'm not going to talk about any more state capitals, I promise.
Good. Sarah is ironing all the things.
Yes, Sarah's finally in her own flat again.
And ironing.
Yes. Yes. Let's
This
have that
scene-
conversation again.
This scene calls for ironing. Tensions are beginning to build for Sarah with this setup because Lily apparently is making the place untidy. But Sarah's also sick of David and Shona living there, but she keeps her mouth shut about that. David goes to the salon to talk about this to Audrey. Now that Harvey and his goons are out of the picture, he asks if he can move into Grassmere Drive with Shona and they can stay in her spare room or whatever for a wee bit. Audrey is sick in her mouth at the thought, but promises to consider it. In the bistro, she talks to Rita and Evelyn about this. This was a nice little scene, wasn't it?
It was.
Having the three of them sitting having a little blather.
Yes.
Evelyn on the wine. Now, Evelyn's normally,
A brandy lady.
yes, double brandy if you don't mind.
Yes.
But she's getting wired into the Vino de Blanc
Yes.
quite easily. It was just nice seeing the three of them hanging out.
It
Do
was.
that. They should do that more often.
They should. Evelyn with her beautiful new haircut.
Audrey's glad that David has seen the light and she's decided to circle the wagon to protect her kin as much as possible. So it sounds like she's made up her mind. So back at Sarah's, Audrey announces that she's going to sell Grassmere Drive and use the money to repair number 8. Sarah is unhappy at David being dug out of a hole, and it's unclear where Audrey's going to live at this point.
Sarah, let's all not forget that it was your daughter who is the cause of all of this.
It's all Bethany's fault.
Please and thank you.
Yes.
It is Bethany's fault.
David agrees, and this calls for a celebration. Audrey has already decided that she's going to move into Gail's annex, which makes David spit out his wine a wee bit, because that's where he's living. He's going to have to go and move into his mum's room, I guess.
Which is fine. His
Yeah.
mum's not using it.
No, she's having a rare old time in the south of France.
Correct.
And that's as far as we get with that storyline this week. Can I just say, thrilled that maybe we have heard Harvey's name being mentioned for the last time.
The very last time.
And no more goons.
Unless he becomes Kit's dad.
Do the sums add up for that? I don't know that the sums add up for that.
I don't know. Probably not, but I'm just speculating. Because it's been hinted that it's somebody we know. A villainous person on the street.
Oh, it's not Steve then.
No,
That would be hilarious. If that enormous man came from Steve's loins.
that would be hilarious.
So unlikely.
Can you imagine Steve and Bernie? No, it's got to be somebody who's not really on the street anymore. Otherwise,
Yeah, because
Bernie would have bumped into them by now and said, "Hey, I had a kid with you once."
Right.
Yeah.
I did see that there's some chat about a flashback episode that's coming up.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
My
seriously.
favorite thing.
Seriously.
I just love flashback scenes.
And they're choosing fairly new characters to be the focus of the flashback, which is disappointing in a way, but makes sense in another way because more established characters, we kind of know their backstory. But there's something about it that just doesn't
Yeah,
sit
but it would
entirely correctly
It
with
would
me.
be fun to see flashbacks that feature, scenes from classic Corrie in them. That would be great.
Yeah. This, I guess, is an exit in its own right as well, because this is the farewell to 5 Grassmere Drive.
Which we never got to see.
Well, we've seen it in classic Corrie. We haven't seen it in the longest time
No.
recently.
No.
Certainly, I don't think since we've been doing the podcast.
So does that mean that they got that reverse mortgage reversed? Or has the show forgotten about that?
If they haven't sorted that out, the reverse mortgage company owns that house.
Yeah. Which will make it difficult for Audrey to sell it.
Or get any money out of it.
Correct.
She's already got her money out of it
Right.
when the reverse mortgage company bought it off her.
Right. But bought it off of Stephen. But she got her money back from Stephen, didn't she? And then she refused to give any of it to anybody else who
No,
were...
wait a minute, because what about the money that they used to buy the Rovers? Wasn't that Audrey's money?
No, that was Carla's money. That was Carla's money that they found in a secret account that didn't get given back
No,
to
you're right.
Audrey.
You're right.
Yes. Why would Audrey buy the Rovers for Jenny?
Well, she didn't know about it.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
It all kind of reminds me of that story where a tourist goes to a hotel and buys a room for the night for £100 and hands over £100, and then goes for a little wander in the town. And the hotelier takes that £100 and he's got an account with the butcher, so he pays £100 for the butcher. And the butcher's got a bill with the baker, so goes and pays the baker. And the baker's got a bill for the candlestick maker, so takes £100 and pays off the candlestick maker. And then the candlestick maker's got an outstanding debt with the hotel owner, so pays the hotel owner back.
Uh-huh.
And then the tourist comes, decides it doesn't want to stay after all, gets his £100 back and then leaves. Everybody's been paid off.
Nobody has any money.
And nobody has any money. It's all
Hilarious.
very much like that, with 50 grand flying about left and right. Yeah, so I don't remember that the reverse mortgage company got their money back or anything came of that. I don't remember Audrey ever finding out about it. But I don't remember things that happened last week, so I'm not the best to ask.
Thanks, COVID.
Yep. Shall we move on then?
Yes, please.
To our next storyline of Who Da Daddy? Well, it
Who
was
did
Kit.
Addie?
It was
That
Kit.
was no Addie. Kit didn't do Addie. It was Courtney Booth who did Addie.
Not yet.
What?
On Monday, Daisy's at the Rovers and tells Jenny that she doesn't want anything more to do with her and snatches a cuddly toy from her. That was just cruel.
Yeah. Well, it's a cuddly toy for the baby.
Meanwhile, at the Rovers, Kit hears that Daisy and Daniel have split up and inadvertently tells her that Jenny means well, although she did try to get her hole off of him. So now Daisy thinks that Jenny spilled her guts to Kit because Kit knocked her back. Typical fucking Jenny. Daisy doesn't think these are the actions of someone who claims to love her. So Daisy has a shouting match with Jenny about this in the pub until Gemma's wig escorts Daisy through the back away from the punters. Jenny's worried that Daisy won't ever forgive her.
It was funny. Every scene Gemma is in, I'm like, who is that? Who is that with the bangs?
She had a little bow at the back of it again.
Yeah.
I think that might be stapled onto the wig. Later, Daisy decides to get wasted and insult the Rovers' clientele until she gets to the point that she throws everyone out. Daniel, of course, refuses to leave. He tries to apologise for the way it sounded yesterday, and he isn't glad that she lost the baby, he insists. She tells him that they can't be together because they're toxic.
Woo, 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 woo.
Plus, she's too busy being broken right now. This doesn't sound like the Daisy that Daniel fell in love with, he says.
Fuck off, Daniel.
Later, Shona is still fucking furious with David from confessing in another storyline, so she comes in to speak to Daisy to check to see if she's thinking about grassing David up to Kit. But before anything can come from that, Jenny barges in and she throws Shona out, but this does nothing to get Jenny back in Daisy's good books, and Daisy tells her that it's her she blames for everything, not Bethany. It's her that she blames for everything that happened, and she will never forgive her.
Never, ever, ever.
With some merit, I think.
Yes. No, I agree. Regardless of what David had scheduled for the street,
Yeah.
Daisy would have never left the pub if Jenny hadn't been horrible to her that day and every day, just because she was sad that she wasn't going to have her name above the door anymore.
She was going to be out of debt.
She was going to be out of debt. She would have still had a job. She would have still had a roof over her head. She just wouldn't have been... And she probably still would have been able to boss people around. Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't have been her name above the door.
Right.
That's all she was going to lose. And it's ridiculous the way that she acted about it.
Even before that, the way that she was manipulating the situation between Daisy and Daniel for her own ends, where she was telling Daniel that he was the baby's dad without any knowledge of the situation.
Right.
And how she wanted Daisy to tell Daniel the truth, but then she didn't want Daisy to tell Daniel the truth when it looked like they were going to get some money out of it.
Yeah.
She's just been a very morally questionable character for the past few weeks. So,
Agreed.
So Daisy, I think, is well within her rights to be fucking furious at her.
Yes.
And to say that, yeah, I don't want anything to do with you. This is all your fault. If you'd kept your mouth shut, none of this would have happened.
Right.
So Wednesday, Dee Dee's alive
Yay!
and heavily pregnant. And the show celebrates this by having Daisy shout at her about babies. And she does have much more time for Jenny in the pub later. Meanwhile, Mick is flirting with Daisy, and she and Lou get off to a bad start because Lou thinks that Daisy's after her man because chemistry.
Because he's the one flirting with her, so she thinks that she must have done something to make him want to flirt with her. Mm-hmm. Yes, because what man doesn't find a woman with her arm in a sling and jam on her face so hot?
Wow. So Lou storms home, and then Daniel comes in thinking that he's the main character in the storyline, and from the headache that Daisy's getting from him and Jenny, Daisy fucks off to the back room with Mick. Daniel bursts in, throws Mick out, but not before Mick calls him Danny, and that rhymes with Fanny.
Yes.
Daniel tells Daisy that he loves her. He thinks that it's not too late for them. Daisy, though, says that she doesn't love him anymore and tells him to leave. Now, Mick was pretty creepy in this.
Yes, he was.
He thought that they were going back for a little bit of ho-ho.
Right.
She just wanted somebody to talk to that wasn't in the situation. Why she chose him, though, God only knows.
Because he was there.
But,
and she doesn't know him.
And then he wasn't really all that keen to leave either.
No.
Until he eventually finally do the right thing eventually. Is that still doing the right thing when you do the right thing eventually?
After being told repeatedly to get the fuck out. Yeah, I don't understand why she brought him in the back to begin with.
On Friday, in Nina's roles, Lou and Mick are being deplorable with each other when Daisy comes in, and Mick gives her the evils, and they run into each other again in the Rovers, and Mick is his typical charming self. He wants her to keep her gob shut about yesterday and claims that he never wanted to shag Daisy in the first place. It was all her doing. Hearing this, Jenny threatens to bar him, and so he slinks off after delivering a mouthful of abuse to both of them. But Daisy isn't impressed with Jenny for barging in, claiming that she was handling it. Jenny tells her to let people try and help her. She doesn't have to do everything herself, and she's allowed to grieve.
Yes.
And talking to Rita about this, Rita thinks that Daisy is too much like Jenny, and she just needs time, and they'll sort it out. Jenny just wants her and Daisy to be back on track again. So later, after getting thrown out, Mick's back in the pub, and he's brought Lou this time.
Yes.
And Mick tries it on again, so Daisy blabs that Mick was coming on to her yesterday and was barred already today. But, and I was going to say surprisingly, but for this type of woman, maybe not surprisingly, Lou takes Mick's side and then tries to attack Daisy over the bar. Once again, it's Jenny to the rescue, and she backs up Daisy's story and throws the pair of them out. And she seemingly somehow knows Mick and Lou's name. No one explains how that's a thing.
Well, they've been in a couple of times, and remember, they're Gemma's best friends now, and Gemma works in the pub, so Gemma's probably told them what their names are.
It seems like that I think would be far more believable if Jenny didn't know what their names were. Like, Mick didn't know who Daniel was, and nor should he.
No, they're new people, so they don't know anything. They probably don't know that Daisy just lost a baby, so all of this is really inappropriate to do and say to her.
Mm-hmm. They should have just little bits of confusion like that. It does add a bit of texture to scenes like this.
And reality.
Yeah. This time, Daisy seems to have the decency of being grateful to Jenny. She apologises for everything that happened and for blaming Jenny. She didn't mean it, and she admits that she's not coping very well. Jenny says that she's there to help. They talk about Daniel, and thankfully Daisy is still of the opinion that it's over between them. Jenny thinks that she's been an arsehole and that she and Daniel are each other's lobsters. She should fight for it. And I'm like, not fucking this again. Seriously.
No, seriously.
Haven't we proved beyond any doubt that they're not each other's lobsters? Right.
Ugh.
For reasons that they've both talked about ad nauseum.
Correct.
But anyway, Daisy gets a bottle of wine and goes to see Daniel and apologises for everything that she said, and he already looks high and mighty about it. But when she says that she loves him after all, he agrees to giving it another go.
Ugh.
And is an asshole about it. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Ugh. It was nice to see Dee Dee again.
Yeah, we'll see a little bit more of her.
Right,
and
yeah.
another storyline.
And there's like no explanation why we haven't seen her for weeks on end. I'm glad that they've remembered that she wants to give the baby up for adoption.
I don't think they can. I don't think even Coronation Street's likely to forget that.
And at least now she looks She looks the right amount of pregnant for where she should be in her pregnancy at this point.
Didn't we land on that she got knocked up in September? So that would make her about 6 months now.
Closer to 7.
October, November, December, January, February, March.
September, October, November, December.
Your day 0 is month 1?
Yes. Anyway, yes, she actually looks 6 months pregnant now. So that's good.
Not 7 months pregnant?
Oh, shut up. 6 or 7 months. It's about the same.
She does. It's a very pronounced bump now.
Yes.
I have no frame of reference as to whether that looks appropriate for 6 months, but in the time that she's been off screen, it does seem that something has been gestating.
Yes.
So that's good.
Hopefully a baby.
Let's hope so. Although with Joel's seed, who
knows?
knows?
I'm really tired of Daniel and Daisy and the back and forth. It doesn't feel believable to me anymore that they would even entertain the idea of getting back together. Especially from Daisy's point of view.
Oh, it's the extension of the Daniel and Bethany relationship that was on again, off again a million times. And how many times did Bethany throw him out? How many times did she say that was it? And then the next day, it became like a form of abuse at that point. And exactly the same thing's going on with Daisy, like it's always done. Remember when Daniel slept with Carla?
Unfortunately, yes.
Seems like everyone's trying to forget that.
Yeah.
I don't know why that popped into my head today when I was watching it, but it was like, didn't he sleep with... He did. He slept with Carla.
He slept with Carla while Carla was with Peter.
They'd split up.
They were on a break. But
So, oh my God, Daniel, what is wrong with you?
But still, it's creepy.
It was his aunt. Not blood aunt.
No. But technically, yes.
Ugh.
Wait. No. Not his aunt. Because he and Peter are brothers. If Adam had slept with Carla, which he did. Adam also slept with Carla. Oh my God.
Maybe
Adam slept with his aunt.
Maybe
Daniel slept with his sister-in-law. Carla has literally slept with half the street, as has Daniel.
that's right, because all it would take was for Ken and Carla would have the whole set.
Oh.
Oof.
Well, no, she'd have to sleep with Tracy as well. Which is possible. They've both slept with women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if this makes Daniel less of an asshole. The fact that he's surrounded by this, maybe. I don't know.
No,
I think
because he's sanctimonious about it. Nobody else is.
he is, and he was correcting her for double negatives and splitting
Infinitive.
split infinitives and stuff. And there's,
Although it kind of sounded like he was trying to make a joke.
he was trying to make a joke, yeah. It wasn't very funny, but he was trying to make a joke. If there's one good thing that comes out of Daisy leaving, it's this comes to an end.
Right. But then who is Daniel going to sleep with next?
I'm sure they'll introduce someone else that's vulnerable in due course.
There's always Dee Dee. She's at loose ends now. She's single. Remember when we thought she was going to hook up with Adam? But Adam went with Alia instead. Which seems to be working out for both of them.
Always a bridesmaid.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our
Please.
next story, which is Yas-Been. On Monday, Yasmeen is super excited about her new job, and all her pals are glad she'll be fucking off too. In the Rovers later, Alia's phoning around law firms when Yasmeen comes in, even more super excited than she was before, and she was pretty super excited before. The charity want her to start tomorrow. Alia tells her to go for it. She can stay with Zeedan without telling him, and she'll look after Speed Daal for her while she's looking to offload the restaurant. Yas-Been, though, has already found someone to buy her shares. It's Leanne fucking Battersby.
Great.
And I think, where did she get the money for? Well, Nick bought her out.
Yes.
What money did Nick have? Well, there's this guy that's got a hotel, and somebody turned up with £100. Jesus.
Yeah. So does not even talk to Alia first. Does not talk to Alia first and says, hey, this person here is interested in buying my shares. What do you think? Do you think you'll be able to work with this person? None of that. Just, oh, I sold my shares and it's to Leanne. Here she is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how business works.
They had 44 minutes to get Yasmeen off the set, basically.
It kind of feels that way.
It wasn't happening quick enough when she announced it on Friday. It had to
Right.
happen on Monday. They couldn't, wait a couple of days. No. It had to happen on Monday.
Yeah. Because that's how jobs also work.
Because if she
Where
doesn't leave...
somebody cancels at the last minute, so they need you to come to work right away.
If she doesn't leave on Monday, we have to pay her for another month.
Right.
So let's get her off and get her out and get all that tied up
Yikes.
in 24 hours.
Yes.
And there's a kind of quarter decent crowd at Speed Daal to see her off, and Leanne promises to look after the place. So, after a chat about some of her memories, Yas-Been drives herself off to that London in the car we never knew she had. And she's just
No, we knew.
and she's just turning the corner when Leanne tells Alia about all the things she intends to change about Speed Daal. And also, Leanne, shouldn't you be using that money to pay back Amy like you said you were going to?
Right. And also, apparently, Yasmeen has told Leanne that Alia doesn't care about that Alia would be perfectly happy with any changes and is willing to take a back seat.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Gran. Thanks for that. Thanks. None of that's true, but sure. You were just in a rush to sell your shares, I guess.
Yas-Been doesn't care. She's bombing it down the M6 with a radio on full blast to that song from Pitch Perfect. The one when they were on the bus.
The Miley Cyrus one?
Yes. That's my favourite one.
With their hands in the air?
Because Anna Kendrick doesn't want to sing to start with.
No.
And then she sings.
Yes.
And it's adorable.
And a Jay-Z song was on.
The Jay-Z song was on. And then we threw our hands up.
Right. They're playing their song.
I think we get demonetised for breaching this copyright. So let's move on to what happens in this storyline on Wednesday.
Ugh.
Alia drops in to Speed Daal to find that in under 24 hours, Leanne has changed the menu for Weatherfield's lucrative brunch market. Alia's not happy about this and says that these should be joint decisions, but Leanne is called away to pick up Sam, surprised that he called for her, so they can't argue about it anymore. And when she goes, Alia tears up the menus. Leanne brings Sam back to the restaurant and is disappointed to see that they've gone back to the old menu and quit the brunch thing.
Right.
Sam thinks that the Speed Daal menu was the best,
Yeah, it was perfect as is.
despite no one asking him for his fucking opinion. Leanne apologises for overstepping the mark, but asks Alia to consider the brunch menu idea in due course, and Sam is very proud of Leanne at how she's turning around, and Leanne is made up by this.
Yes.
Sam's voice is changing a little bit, did you notice?
I have noticed, yes. It kind of breaks my heart a little bit.
I know, because he was so young, and
He was
now
so
he's
wee, and now he's
just
growing up
becoming another teenager.
right before our eyes. It's so sad. But yes, let's talk about cultural appropriation and how inappropriate it is for a white woman to come into this restaurant and tell this brown woman how to make her cultural food and how to improve it to get more white people to come in to the restaurant. I mean, she doesn't say that, but by saying the word brunch, it's kind of implied, isn't it? Because don't only white people have brunch?
I think that's kind of racist, Helen. Any ethnicity is allowed to have a meal between breakfast and lunch.
Right, yes. But only white people call it brunch.
Is that true? I don't know if that's true.
It's probably not, but, you know, I'm allowed to say nasty things about white people because I'm white.
You're super white.
I am super white. I've got the
You reject the sun.
I've got the Ancestry.com results to prove it.
It's my legs. My legs don't take a tan.
It's true. They don't.
I think it's because they are so white. They
Yeah.
just reflect the sunlight off them.
Right. Yes.
But my wee arms take a tan.
Yes. And your wee head.
My baldy wee head.
If you forget to wear a hat,
And I always forget to wear a hat.
you do always forget to wear a hat. But yeah, these
Leanne-
things were very uncomfortable to watch.
I don't know that she changed any of the food. But it
She
seemed
changed
that
the menu.
That she created a brunch menu to get Weatherfield's lucrative 11 o'clock crowd.
Yeah.
And
And Alia says, we tried that once and it didn't work.
yeah, that should have been enough. Or what should have been enough was Leanne saying, what I'm thinking about doing is doing this. Or have you thought about doing this?
Yeah.
Or here's an idea.
Right. Instead of just barging in and doing all of this stuff and just assuming that she can do whatever she wants and that Alia does not get a say.
Because just because Yasmeen says you can do what you want,
Doesn't mean that you can do what you want.
well, it means that maybe you shouldn't do what you want. Maybe you should check with other people that are there.
Right. Who
Just as-
own shares in the restaurant and who've been in the business as long as you have and also know this particular business very, very well.
just as a courtesy.
Yeah. I mean, Leanne's not known for her courtesy. Fair
But-
enough.
But Speed Daal is constantly bouncing.
Yeah.
There's always people in it.
It's the busiest restaurant on the street.
Without a doubt.
It goes Speed Daal,
then
Nina's
that's
Rolls.
it.
No, Speed Daal, Nina's Rolls, the kebab shop,
No.
and then the bistro.
Bistro's busier than the kebab. Well, we never see the kebab shop.
We haven't seen the kebab shop in ages. And we never see inside the Chippies, so we have no idea about that. And we don't even get to see the Chippies foods delivered anymore because
Because drugs.
right, yes. And Simon is gone, so he can't deliver the Chippy food anymore.
How quickly have we forgotten about Simon?
I haven't forgotten about Simon. I just mentioned him.
I was watching some of the Coronation Street in under 4 minutes that I did a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it was funny seeing Simon's beef with, what's his name, Jacob,
Yes.
and how awfully contrived that was.
Yes.
But perma furious Simon was quite the sight. But yeah, he's been gone and no one really mentions him anymore. But yeah, the Speed Daal always has punters in it.
Yeah.
Steve probably props it up on his own.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was desperate for another menu, but anyway.
No, it
I'll get dealt
wasn't.
with it.
And I do understand Leanne wanting to put her own stamp on something, but she's also got to consider how it looks for her in particular to put her own stamp on this particular restaurant.
I don't know that it's... But I do agree that there is room for communication here.
Yes.
I don't know that it's just the lack of communication or the fact that she does it immediately that I
Right.
find most egregious.
Yes.
Maybe give it a week. Maybe have a
You
look
know,
at the books. Maybe
and-
see how trade flows through the place
Right.
before you decide to
And she's already
change it.
mad and she's so mad. She seems the maddest about Alia throwing away the menus that she just printed out. And it's like,
Less than 24 hours notice.
right, yeah.
Yep.
Maybe you shouldn't have done that then.
Maybe they should have let Yasmeen hang about for a little while.
That would have
Maybe
been
that's what they
nice.
should have done.
That would have been nice.
Oh, and in that frame of mind, our next storyline is fuck you, Coronation Street.
Yes.
On Monday, in Nina's Rolls, right in front of Mary, Brian mentions how much he'd like to ask Julie out to dinner. Just as friends.
Just as friends.
He insists. Mary thinks Julie has contributed to a rather foul atmosphere since she came to stay. Back at Eileen's, Julie is fussing over Todd and George, who are preparing for her funeral, and after Todd goes, she talks to George about her own passing. George, who's just lovely, tells her to pop into the Undertaker's if she wants to talk about it, if this is the right time for her. And eventually, this is overheard enough by Eileen, so Julie now has to confess all, that she's dying. Brian has been getting Dutch courage and advice from Gemma's wig, meanwhile,
Yes.
and Gemma's wig tells him to get her a bunch of flowers and ask Julie out. So he does this, and he goes to Eileen's, who essentially tells him to fuck off and slam the door in his face.
Which-
He's a new stew.
He is a new stew.
But because she and Julie are having a deep and meaningful about Julie's cancer and life expectancy, Julie is remarkably upbeat about it all and kind of joking about it, which Eileen isn't ready to do.
No.
But after the shock, Eileen does manage to share a laugh with her about karaoke, as they agree for Julie to live life to the fullest with what she's got left.
Yes.
Later, Todd and George apologise for not telling Eileen Julie's secrets and agree to focus on taking care of her. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Huzzah. I'm glad Eileen knows now.
Yes. Pointless secrets are pointless.
Yes. Especially when it comes to one's health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice because initially she said she didn't think she was going to see the summer. And now she says she's maybe got a year. So in between when she first showed back up and now, she must have gotten some fairly optimistic news from a doctor at some point.
Fairly optimistic.
Yes.
You're going to die in a year.
As opposed to you're not going to see summer.
I don't know that they're that specific.
Yeah.
When they're telling you these
they're
things.
not supposed to be. And in real life, they never are.
No.
No.
Because in real life, they don't know.
Right. And in real life, they're afraid of lawyers. As we found out this morning.
Yes. I still wish that Julie wasn't dying. I still think there are other ways to bring her back into the story and to be part of Eileen's leaving story without her having to die.
Yeah.
But it does give some tender moments. And despite the gloom of it, it's not being pitched as it's not playing out as a gloomy story. It's given George a chance to show his compassion, which is always nice to see. And Eileen, despite being upset, they were sharing a bit of laugh as they talk about their past and about the things that brings Julie some joy. So I wouldn't go as far as to say it was uplifting, but it wasn't the drudgery and the dreariness that I was maybe expecting from this storyline as it presented itself a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. It's nice because these aren't dreary people. These are characters we kind of depend upon to kind of add a little humor to some of the darker storylines. Todd was very good at that with Paul dying. You know, I mean, he had some very heartfelt and really emotional scenes with Paul, but he was also kind of lightening the mood quite a bit as well. So remember when Todd and Ed had to get Paul out of the tub? Had to get Billy out of the tub.
Billy, yeah, his poor back had given out.
Right, yes, in the tub.
He's a martyr to his back.
He
Maybe
is.
it's that time he fell all the way down a quarry that done it.
Yes, and survived somehow.
Yeah, that's bound to give you a twinge when the cold weather
Every
comes in,
once
isn't
in
it?
a while.
Yeah, I think Eileen can be a bit of a dour puss at times, but
Yes,
it's usually done with a little bit
typically
of comedy in it.
humorous. You look at Eileen mad and it's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see where that goes now that Eileen knows. Brian is really trying hard to get back with Julie, though.
Which is sad. And inappropriate. Poor Mary is just right there in her lovely pink fleece jacket thing.
So there probably is a little bit of ambiguity around about
Their
Brian
relationship.
and Mary's relationship.
Yeah. Which maybe there shouldn't be because didn't we start this like 7 months ago? Something like that. It's been a long time since they first kind of hinted at Mary and Brian kind of maybe being an item. So maybe there shouldn't be ambiguity there anymore. And maybe the show needs to treat Mary with some respect.
Oh, you've been desperate for this since you started watching it, I think. That it does treat Mary like a bit of a punch bag.
Like
a bit
Kirk.
Like a bit of a punchline.
She's like a Lady Kirk sometimes. And that's unfair.
Yeah, Mary's funny, though.
Yes. That's why it's unfair.
We'll move on to our next storyline. Brother, can you spare a kidney? On Monday at Carla's, it's Action Station's early doors when they discover that Betsy has snuck out to that fucking party after all.
Which we already knew about, but Carla and Swain did not.
Yes. Swain calls in an APB or whatever while Carla goes out on a recce, with Swain worried that this is Rob's doing. Carla finds Betsy, who isn't in the least bit remorseful, and no sooner is she back than she immediately leaves. She's not scared of no Rob Donovan, who, according to reports, is in Brighton anyway. But at the precinct, she runs into someone who looks like they're missing a kidney, and assuming that it's Rob, it turns out that, you know what, Betsy is very scared of him after all.
Yes.
And she runs away, kind of amusingly,
Right.
into the arms of Kit.
Yes.
And then when that gets a bit creepy, into the arms of Carla. And then a bit later, into the arms of Swain.
Yes.
Privately, Swain tells Carla she doesn't think Rob will survive much longer without any medical help.
Yes.
And says, you think? And says they all need to stick together and close ranks. It turns out that Betsy hears these concerns and looks like she might be about to do something rash. I don't think she does, though.
Yes, yes. Please, let's stop having teenagers do something rash on the show for a while. Can we, please?
On Wednesday at Carla's, Swain has some disturbing news. The police have found a body that they suspect to be Rob's. Panicked, Carla rushes off to work, knowing that she'll have to formally identify a body, and sorry to drag Swain and Betsy into all this shite.
Surely the police have photographs of Rob Donovan, yes? Surely they know what he looks like.
Yeah, there's people at the prison who are fairly sure what he looks like.
Right, yeah. So they think it might be Rob. Should not be a sentence that we hear. I mean, you have to and family member does have to formally identify bodies if at all possible. But it should be just a formality because they should know what Rob looks like.
Yeah.
They can't say, oh, we found a dead body and there's a guy on the run. Maybe it's him. Let's look at these pictures.
Well, what they could have done is check his side for any signs of recent
missing
surgery.
kidney.
Yes. And then maybe Carla, did they need to go and stare at a dead body? Oh, do you know what? This guy doesn't look like he's donated a kidney in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Nope.
Probably isn't our guy after all.
No.
Later, Betsy has skipped college, still rattled about the Rob situation that she claimed not to care about the other day, and relieved to think that he might be dead. But when Carla goes to identify the body, it isn't Rob, which means that he's still out there.
And sadly, we don't get to see the body.
I was going to put something together where you see a sheet getting pulled away, and it's I don't know, Mel Gibson or something.
Or Eddie Murphy.
Do you know, I might just make that for us. I might just do that. When Betsy hears this news, despite insisting that she didn't care a couple of days ago, she physically shits herself.
Yes.
And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Yes.
So this is something that I imagined was going to come to a bit of a head this week, but we're stretching out the plausibility of it.
Right, yes.
Of this injured and...
We're stretching this out, but we're booting Yasmeen immediately on Monday.
Right.
And closing out Max's story with a phone call.
And Grasmere Drive over the course of one part of one episode.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought we were going to see Rob coming back for his revenge this week, maybe next week. If it gets much beyond next week, they really are just asking us to suspend our disbelief to a unacceptable level of a man who was bleeding out.
Right. It's already in an unacceptable level. That man should not be walking. That man should be dead. Remember, he fell down like 2 flights of stairs onto hard cement, burst his seams after donating a kidney.
Yep. Probably shot himself.
Right. And let's not forget that, he was on heavy medications and stuff and is susceptible to infection as well. So
Yes,
the man should be dead.
Yes. The same infection that, Carla got.
Right. Yes.
But no, we have him knocking Swain into unconsciousness.
Yes. And then driving a car.
And then doing a Michael Myers and just sitting up while a piano plays creepily in the background and walking away.
That's what you should do. You should
I already did that for Harvey, though.
You should take like the scene from Halloween where Jamie Lee Curtis is staring out the window, and instead of Michael Myers in the yard, it should be Rob Donovan in his hoodie.
I think I did that with Tim's dad. Because remember when Tim's dad was in amongst the chickens?
Yes, being creepy. Yes.
I think I did Jamie Lee Curtis looking out at Tim's dad. I'm sure I did that.
Maybe you should do a montage of different Coronation Street villains. Like, first it's Tim's dad, and then it's Rob Donovan, and then it's
Eddie Murphy. Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. That's my day tomorrow sorted out.
So yeah.
Let's get this over and done with. We've dealt with Harvey. Now we just need to deal with this.
Oh, Harvey can be in the yard too.
He was standing on top of the flipped over prison van, exactly like Michael Myers does.
Yeah.
Our next storyline tonight: Stabby Dylan on the inside. Just a few scenes from Monday about this, Helen. At the STC, the young Paul Mescal has got a bit of dooberage going
I wish you would just stop.
and invites. No, I'm going to stick at it at least this week because I can't remember what his name is.
Brody.
And invites. Oh,
His name is Brody.
And invites Dylan to smoke the dooberage with him. The pair of them are stoned out their tits and are giggling away when they're discovered by one of the teachers who threatens to put them both on report. But what was his name again?
Brody.
A young Paul Mescal takes a rap for it.
Fuck you.
So Dylan.
Why must you besmirch
Gets
the
off.
name of Paul Mescal?
I thought he looked like Paul Mescal.
Paul Mescal is blonde. This man has brown hair.
He's not blonde.
Dark brown hair.
Later, Dylan thanks him for covering, telling him that he owes him one. Yeah, says Brody, creepily. I suppose you do. Dylan doesn't notice any of this. None of this twigs.
No.
He was in a very unhealthy relationship with Mason for the longest time,
Yeah, Mason didn't
to the point where he was forcing Dylan into bullying. And this doesn't teach Dylan any signs to look out for, any
No.
character traits
'Cause
to look out for.
This is different.
Elements of it are different, but elements of it as well are the same. It's like, you're my friend because you have no other friends.
Right.
And that's how they get you.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Is that how they got you?
Yeah, they kind of isolate you from your other friends.
And Dylan has no one to be isolated from, except for Daniel. And you want to be isolated from Daniel.
Yeah, you make a point of requesting that, I think.
I think so.
If this, as we discussed in the feedback section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic, the way that this is going is not something that I really want to see.
No.
And like I said, any scene in the STC is a scene too many.
Correct.
Dylan's there. We should just be done with Dylan for a few months.
Yes.
And
Isn't he leaving as well? Can't this just be Dylan's leaving story as well?
I've
as
lost
Max?
track of who's leaving.
Pretty sure Dylan's supposed to be leaving as well. Can we just have like a sad phone call with Sean and then it's over? Just like with Max. I suppose Dylan isn't far enough away for that to make sense. But still.
Maybe he could be caught in the fallout when Tinker explodes.
Because there's a dark storm coming.
A dark explosive storm coming.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Tinker's going to explode or not. I'm going to guess that he's not.
He's going to become the next Thor.
Okay,
Storms. God of Thunder.
sure.
Yes.
Our penultimate storyline tonight is Dee Dee up the duff. On Friday,
Ugh.
Ed's back looking after a heavily pregnant Dee Dee. Seems Ed is getting a bit of baby fever and is unsure that Dee Dee's making the right decision adopting her baby.
It's not your decision, Ed.
Dee Dee, though, is sure that this is the best course of action.
Yes.
Later in these roles, Dee Dee tells Bernie how worried she is that she's breaking Ed's heart, that he's expecting to hold a baby, and it's unlikely that he's going to get the chance, neither she for that matter. Bernie tells her it's not Ed that's having the baby, and she can still have a relationship with it in time. She wishes that she hadn't given Kit up, and it still hurts, but ultimately it was the right decision.
It's very nice that this conversation happens.
Yes.
that the show remembers that there's another person on the street who gave a baby away for adoption. I appreciated this scene.
Yeah, Dee Dee's insights may not have been exactly groundbreaking, but it's exactly what Dee Dee needed to hear.
Dee Dee's insights weren't what Dee Dee needed to hear?
Bernie's insights.
Yes.
Because, like you said, it's not Ed's decision.
Nope.
It's Dee Dee's decision.
Yep.
This is what she sees to be the best way of dealing with this, because she's not the sort of person who could get a termination, and she certainly doesn't want to raise this baby herself, so this seems like the only option that's available.
Correct.
Ed is not happy with this, though.
No.
Later in the pub, Dee Dee apologises to Ed for snapping, but stands by her decision, and when she leaves, Ed has pretended to be happy, but isn't happy, and goes off to make a call. He needs this grandchild in his life. You've got Glory. Focus on Glory.
Right. Seriously, you have a grandchild already. What is wrong with you?
He can't sit and do nothing. Ronnie is sure that whatever Ed is planning is a bad idea.
Right, yes, because it's Dee Dee's decision.
Yeah. And plus it's Ed.
Right. We know what Ed is doing here. We're not going to talk about it because we don't do spoilers. I mean, I'm very happy to see more Baileys on the street again.
Oh, we are talking about it then.
No, I mean, it's nice to see Dee Dee and Ed again because we haven't seen Dee Dee and Ed for months. You know, and God only knows where Michael is. Where's Michael? Where did he go? We should see him in the factory where he works. And we never see him anymore. So it's nice to see the Baileys back on the street. This whole thing with Ed is just... It's disappointing. And it's an interesting insight from Dee Dee that she thinks that Ed blames himself correctly for breaking up the family and for her mom never coming back. But she really needs to sit him down and say, look, you were okay with me having a termination. You should be okay with this. Because either way, you're not getting a grandchild right now. You will eventually get another grandchild. You have one already. Her name is Glory. We don't get to see her very often. Or her father. But she exists. So maybe focus on that. It's weird when you already have one to be like obsessed with not getting another one so quickly.
I wonder if Dee Dee and Ronnie and Michael visit Aggie from time to time.
Or call her on the phone. It'd be weird if Ronnie did it. But yeah, Dee Dee and Michael and James need to call her occasionally. One would imagine.
It's just such an unusual situation for a mother to remove herself from her children.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, they get together
happens,
off screen. And they're all adults.
I'd like them to address that. Just
they're all
in
adults.
passing.
It'd be weird if they were still in school and she just,
Well, her grandkid then.
She's not responsible for that grandkid.
No, but maybe she wants to see it.
Well, she can visit or they can visit her.
Well, that's
It's not
exactly
like-
what I'm saying, though, Helen. They don't give us any bones like that maybe
No.
that's been happening.
But one assumes that it does.
Does one assume that? I
Yes.
don't think one does assume it because it never gets mentioned.
Yeah. But lots of things don't get mentioned. I assume everyone on the street uses the toilet, but we don't hear them talking about it very often. Except for, of course, Debbie this week, which was hilarious. And also sad. Anyway, yay Baileys.
All right, we'll move on then to our final storyline tonight. Vallies off the Ken doll. On Wednesday, Tracy turns up at the cab office worried about Ken, but Ken's away with Amy. He's getting on a little retreat where he can go and feel sorry for Cassie. Steve's worried too, thinks that maybe another carer would help. Tracy thinks that should be her, but Steve points out that she's too busy shacked up with a bargain basement Beckham. Meanwhile, Cassie has received a knockback on her sofa surfing tonight from one of her mates, and she's out of cash, so she steals a sleeping bag from a charity shop and she passes it in the precinct. She drops into the pub looking for any shifts, but Jenny can't help, and I don't think would help even if she could.
No.
Meanwhile, Tommy O drops in at the pub looking for a word with Tracy.
It's Tommy O!
He's been offered a job in Southampton. He's taken it and he's given up the lease on their flat.
Without telling her.
But Tracy's had enough of being a footballer's wife, so she just dumps him like that. And that's Tommy O gone.
Boo.
And 2 scenes?
Yeah.
So maybe Yasmeen's stay was somewhat extended, and judging by how quickly Tommy O exits.
Yeah, Tommy O's not a regular character, though. And I didn't expect to ever see him again already. So this is kind of like a little extra bonus.
Cassie overhears this and thinks it's hilarious.
Right, yeah. Which is... What is wrong with Cassie's brain? Because it's like, oh, I'm going to find this hilarious that this has happened to you. However, I'm sleeping in the gunnel in a stolen sleeping bag from a charity shop.
Mm-hmm. It's not a great look.
It's not.
But the show has to have Cassie overhearing Tracy's business and Tracy overhearing Cassie's business. This is how they maintain a rivalry, apparently. This is the only way to do it.
Is this a rivalry, though? Is it really?
Yeah, well, they hate each other.
Yeah, but that's not really a rivalry.
Isn't it? Isn't that exactly what a rivalry is? That you hate the other one?
But that you're also competitive with one another.
Not necessarily.
A rivalry is when you are competitive with one another.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, that's what rivals means.
No, it isn't what rivals means.
Yes.
There's no necessity for competitiveness between it.
That's
Scotland are rivals with England.
Right.
And when Scotland play England, England always win.
Right, yes, but they're still competitive in spirit. Kind of like back in the olden days when the Red Sox and the Yankees were rivals and the Red Sox never won.
Mm-hmm. But that was still a rivalry, though.
Yes.
Even though one never won.
Right, but
So it's not really competitive then.
But they were still heavily competitive with one another, even though only one ever won. You don't have to win to be competitive.
Tracy calls her...
Rivalry. From from the Oxford Dictionary. Competition for the same objective or for superiority in the same field. Rivalry. Hatred, not in the definition.
Tracy calls her a gross junkie. Later in Nina's roles, Steve takes pity on Cassie and buys her a pie or something. He hasn't forgiven her. He just doesn't want to see her starve. He tells her to speak to Tyrone about a place to sleep, but she thinks that boat has sailed. She tries to speak to him anyway, but chooses a moment when Tracy is lingering around. She tries to apologise, but ends up in a shouting match with Tracy instead. Ty leaves them to it. So Cassie ends up sleeping in a gunnel somewhere in a stolen sleeping bag, but she looks quite cosy, so that's alright.
Yes, she even finds some cardboard to lay on.
On Friday, Evelyn's back.
Yay!
Already. She's a barrister now. She wanders by Cassie in her sleeping bag, not realising that it was her. Meanwhile, Tracy drops in to see Steve, looking for some small talk. She tells him that she and Tommy O have split up. They weren't really compatible, it turns out. Then Evelyn drops in to see Tyrone and cuts to the chase. She knows that Cassie has been poisoning Ken Barlow, and we wonder how Evelyn knows that. We find out later. It isn't long before Cassie and Tracy are having a slanging match in the street again. Steve tells her to call Canny, which makes Tracy convinced that he still has a thing for her. Tracy goes to the cop shop, speaks to Tinker about Cassie walking free, and Tinker explains to her, you get the sense, not for the first time, that there's nothing that they can do if Ken isn't prepared to give any evidence. Tracy is fuming at this.
Which feels wrong, doesn't it? Because in a lot of these, elder abuse cases, part of the reason why the elder has been abused is because they really don't have a voice anymore and can't necessarily give evidence. So it's kind of a shame that they need Ken's word in order to do anything, or why they would need the abused person's word for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You'd think there'd be a workaround.
Yeah, pesky proof. So Tracy's fuming. She calls Cassie round to thrash this out at number 1. Cassie's suspicious, but Tracy claims she's attempting compassion for the first time in her life and has made them both a spot of lunch. It's soup and banoffee pie. Cassie opens up about how much she misses Ken and asks if he's picked up his prescription and has gone to his appointments. And it seems that Tracy might actually realise that Cassie was actually doing a job other than poisoning Ken after all. She reveals that Ken will probably forgive Cassie, but it'll never be the same. And then we saw earlier on that Tracy was in the Ginnell seemingly buying drugs from someone and was spotted by Debbie.
Yes.
And she attempts to put temptation in front of Cassie by offering her a lovely twist of heroin. Cassie doesn't think very much of Tracy's revenge plan, and nor do I. This is a very out of the blue sort of thing.
Really? Tracy being cruel is out of the blue?
No, Tracy choosing to buy heroin for Cassie is kind of strange and out of the blue.
No, because she's a cruel person and she knows how to get under Cassie's skin.
But what does it matter to Tracy? Cassie's out of the picture. She's sleeping on concrete.
Well, first of all, Tracy
giving
does...
her some heroin out of her own pocket as well.
Yeah, because she wants her to start abusing drugs again and die.
Tracy reckons everyone hates Cassie, so she might as well get off her face. Cassie takes the drugs and a spoon and leaves. And she plays about with the twist in Vicky Gardens, but Evelyn comes in looking all bohemian with a fancy little beret on. Cassie awaits the lecture, but instead Evelyn tells her to grab her stuff. They're going to sort this out.
And a gorgeous new haircut, it must be said.
And new glasses. No one turfs her daughter out, even if she deserved it. Cassie throws the heroin in the bin. So, back at Tyrone's, Tyrone and Fizz want to throw Cassie out, but Evelyn insists it's Ken who wants people to forgive Cassie, because it was Ken who called Evelyn in the first place. Ken has Evelyn's number. Evelyn is disgusted too, but
it's the old people network.
But if Ken can show compassion, then so can they. But Tyrone and Fizz stand firm, worried about what effect Cassie could have on the girls. Cassie's heard enough and storms out. Evelyn runs after her, saying that Tyrone and Fizz will come round eventually. And Cassie thinks Evelyn only cares because her own pride is damaged and tells her to fuck off back to uni. Evelyn gives her money for a hotel room and promises to talk soon. But
yes,
Cassie,
because hotels take cash still.
Yeah, but Cassie goes back to Vicky Gardens to get her drugs out of the bin, but has trouble finding them and has to fend off a inquisitive PC tinker while she's at it. Back at number 1, Tracy announces that she's thinking about moving back in to ensure that Ken doesn't get drugged again, and Evelyn tries again to make the case for Cassie to Tyrone, but he's washed her hands of her and he's standing firm. She's not family anymore. And then we see Tracy eavesdropping on a distressed Cassie in the Ginnel, seemingly on the phone to her dealer. And that's how we end this week's episodes.
Yes. Yeah, this may be the cruelest thing Tracy has ever done. And let's not forget, she killed a man.
She did. And she will kill again.
Yes. Yes. Only this time she'll use heroin to do it.
I still don't see this. It doesn't ring true for me. It doesn't ring true at all. It just seems there are better, more Tracy ways to get a revenge on Cassie than this. But
than to orchestrate an overdose.
But I am glad that we're getting to see the bitchy side of Tracy again.
Yes.
Because this is a Tracy that we haven't seen in quite some time.
Right.
Not to this extent, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen very much of Tracy herself in quite some time. So it's nice. It's nice that she and Steve are friends and they're not trying to rehabilitate that relationship.
Well, not yet. I can see it happening.
I kind of hope not.
I hope not either.
But it's nice that, that she's becoming like Leanne for Steve. An ex that you can just sit and chat and joke with.
And have sex with.
And not have sex.
Well.
Although he and Leanne did have sex that last time.
Notwithstanding that last time.
Yes, notwithstanding that last time. So, I mean, let's not forget, Leanne had sex with Ryan.
Yeah,
remember that?
That's flying under the radar of most people, I think.
Yes, that will live rent-free in my head forever.
Oh, how much of a chatty Cathy Ryan is in the morning.
Yes.
Nobody needs that.
No.
It's unnecessary cruelness. I was surprised that Tyrone and Fizz are standing firm, though, given that Evelyn's given them a hard time about it,
right.
and Hope's given them a hard time about it, and usually only one of those things needs to be true.
Right. Are you kind of surprised that Evelyn is giving them a hard time about it?
Yes.
Let's not forget, Evelyn herself kicked Cassie out once or twice back in the day. Although I suppose she is older and wiser and, because of the existence of Tyrone, probably regrets that decision a little bit.
I don't see Evelyn saying things like, no one throws my daughter out, when the person that's throwing the daughter out as the grandson.
Right. Fizz and Tyrone do have a point about not wanting someone who's willing to drug an old man for cash around their daughters, especially Hope, who's very impressionable and has very loose morals to begin with.
That ship sailed, though. That ship sailed years ago.
Yeah, but you still don't want that sort of influence around your kid who's probably going to murder someone someday and it's already, brought about the death of an unborn baby at least once.
Right, worry about Hope being around Ruby.
Yeah.
There's something to worry about.
See, there they can't really do anything until, Hope's 18. It is nice to see Fizz and Tyrone sticking to their guns, though. I do like that. Because they don't often do that.
Yeah, it's a strange hill for them to die on, I guess.
Well, Ken did almost die.
Well, he nearly died because of the heart attack. I don't think he nearly died because of the antihistamines.
Yeah.
It made him sleepy.
Right, yes, but it was the anger brought about the heart attack, the shoutiness and stuff, and the exertion and the trauma. And, overdosing on histamines is going to do bad things to your body besides just making you sleepy. It's going to mess with your immune system. So it's nice to see them sticking to their guns. For now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter whether or not Ken forgives her. Because that's Ken. It's okay for them not to forgive her. And Ken's not going to give her... Ken's kicked her out as well. He may have forgiven her, but he's not going to let her sleep in his house.
No. I think Cassie has maybe burnt too many of the bridges with Tyrone. And it's maybe a shame that they don't draw attention to the things that Cassie has done since she came back. Like, for example, trying to be Abby 2.0.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they dropped that. That was awful.
It was awful, but it's something that Tyrone should maybe mention, that this isn't something that they're taking in isolation, and they're making it sound like it is. Like the only bad thing that she's done is give Ken antihistamines when she was doing her damnedest to split Kev and Abby up, who Tyrone is a business partner of and
yes.
and friends with and
yes.
and all that sort of stuff. So that carries a bit of weight as well, that adds to this decision that, they are making a bold and solidarity stand against this together, and it's about high time. I don't think that Evelyn would be willing to die on this hill as much as she seems to be. She might offer her support and put her up in a hotel and do these little whispers and stuff into Tyrone's ear when he's on his own and stuff like that. But being so brazen as to drag Cassie back to have it out here and there just seemed a little bit, just maybe a bit out of character. I also don't know that she would come back for this.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she did. I'm glad that we get to see her during her time off, but I don't know that she's coming back for this.
No. I mean, let's not forget we were kind of surprised that she didn't come back immediately when this whole Ken thing happened. But now it kind of makes sense that initially nobody wanted to tell her, which makes sense. I'm surprised that Cassie hasn't, slunk off into the night, because she's got form for that as well. Just kind of when she's burnt too many bridges, just take off sort of thing.
Well, wasn't she in South Africa? This is a character
No, say it right.
She's the sort of character who had maybe a resourcefulness about her that would send her to spend years of her life in South Africa. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And so to hang around here when, she's got a certain nous about her and street smarts and stuff.
Yeah.
That hanging about doesn't necessarily have to be her only option.
No.
Other than keeping her in the show, obviously.
Right, yes, and keeping her with the only family she's got. It kind of feels like she kind of likes being a grandma a little bit.
But she said to Tracy that she'd been off the smack for a year and a half. If she's gone back on it as quickly as that, and presumably has used Evelyn's money to buy more of it, if she couldn't find it in the bin.
Yeah, that's going to kill her.
Yeah, I don't know that. It seems a cheap way of pushing this character back onto the old habits.
Well, let's remember the multiple times they did that with Abby.
Oh, and they'll do it again to Abby, I'm sure.
They better not.
And that every time I complain about it, so at least I'm consistent.
Yes, you are.
Oh, well, that was the week that was Coronation Street. Helen, tell me, what was your moment of the week?
You know, I think it's Dee Dee and Bernie talking about adoption and giving away babies. I thought that was a really heartfelt scene. I felt like it was a scene that made sense. And it gave us some insight into characters that we don't often get to see, you know, sitting down together.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the scene between Audrey and Evelyn and Rita, and I think a moment like that is well overdue, but I think I would agree with you that
Yes.
Dee Dee and Bernie giving her worldly advice to Dee Dee is our
Moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
your boring moment of the week.
Oh, God. Daniel talking about split infinitives.
It's been a while since Daniel's got a boring moment of the week. This is long overdue.
Yes.
Daniel and his usual arshiness is our
Boring moment of the week.
Yay!
And now we move on to our Ye Me Zzz section of the show. This is where I go on to Twitter and ask our followers what they thought of this week's Coronation Street offering. Did they like it? Yeah. Were they kind of ambivalent about it? Meh. Or did they not like it at all? Zzz. And the results this week came in as zzz, 33.9%, meh, 42.9%, and yay, 23.2%. Last week's kind of came out more or less 33% across the board, so maybe a little bit more meh and zzz this week than last. But we don't let those results influence our score, Helen. Of course we don't.
No.
So what score would you give the show out of 10 this week?
I mean, it was fine.
It was fine.
There was nothing, besides the whole Leanne thing, there was nothing that really got under my, and, you know, Max and Yasmeen basically getting booted very unceremoniously. There wasn't anything that I was like all that overly upset about. And I do kind of like the idea of Leanne and Alia working together.
I quite like that too.
And for Leanne to still be working in the restaurant business. And this is realistically the only option she's got.
Unless she's working in a kebab shop.
Right, yeah, which is never going to happen.
I'd quite like to see her in that little blue
hat and apron.
Yeah, with Leanne spelt wrong, sewn into the lapel.
Remember when we used to get scenes in the kebab shop all the time?
That's how we met Gemma, wasn't it?
I kind of miss it.
Gemma coming in and eating kebabs without closing her mouth.
Yeah. So, I don't know, 5, kind of middle of the road.
It's a 5 every day of the week for me. This week I thought all the episodes were just kind of middle of the road. There were some bits that I enjoyed more than others. Like I said, I enjoyed the scenes with the oldies and the bistro chatting about all their storylines together was quite nice. It's one of those things that we don't get an awful lot of these days, when one scene caters for advancing more than one storyline. But I don't know, Yasmeen's exit was really rushed.
It was.
Tommy O's was rushed.
Yes.
And Max's just felt kind of weird. So yeah, it's just a straight down the line 5 out of 10 for me as well this week. Alright, let's wrap this one up then. This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast: Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, English Victoria, Aurora Yvonne, Heather Westerfield, Russell Whiting, Jackie B, Brittany Porter, Loriana, Tina, Stephen, Leah, Tara J, Fiona B, Canadian Jennifer, and Josephino Tingy. Thank you so very much, everybody. We really appreciate it, don't we, Helen?
Yes.
If you've ever made your mortal enemy a banoffee pie, write in to tell us what you put in it. We're the talk of the street at gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky, or you can reach us the old-fashioned way, the talk of the street, PO Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan 48827. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street, or patreon.com/the talk of the street. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes of your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
It's Hell Week.
This
Not
Bong
Jim.
Week. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. And we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
The Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.